Good morning and many thanks for joining the webinar. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Richard Bates. I'm Sales Director for EBS. EBS are based just outside of Birmingham near Spaghetti Junction, but we cover the whole of the country, so we've got a national reach. We've been established for around about, well, just over 42 years, just turned 42 at the end of last year, and we're a long-standing Sage partner. Likewise, we've been partnered with Sicon, who join us today for a number of those years, and we partner with them selling their products, which obviously adds a huge benefit to the Sage 200 platform. Right, without further ado then, I'll pass you over to Ben and I'll let you proceed.
Brilliant, thank you, Richard. So obviously, as Richard alluded to, so I'm Ben. I'm a business partner, account manager here at Sicon. For those of you that aren't aware, so Sicon, we specifically build enhancements for Sage 200. We've been doing so for the last 20 years. So we simply take Sage 200, which you guys are obviously using at the moment, and we build additional functionality, such as documents that we'll be covering today, but things like barcoding, warehousing. We have over 27 different modules. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my camera off and share my screen with you. Fantastic. So can you hear me clearly?
Yep, you still there?
I'm still here. Yep. So today's session is going to be focused around document automation. We're going to cover three different areas. The first being kind of what is document automation. The second is how does it work? And that'll include a live demonstration. And third is the key benefits. So today's session is only 30 minutes. So it's going to be a very brief overview of exactly how it works. Brilliant. So the first thing then is, what is document automation? So as I mentioned, we've got about 27 different modules, but the document automation is actually invoice automation. So essentially what that is it takes a process that is timely, takes up a lot of kind of manual admin resource. And what we simply do is we automate that process. So as opposed to you simply entering a purchase invoice manually into Sage each time, what we do is we use an OCR functionality. So that allows you to read an invoice and automatically insert it into Sage. And I'll show you exactly how that works. So if we start with the end in mind, what we want to do is if we take one of our suppliers, so I'm going to go into our purchase ledger and take a look at one of our key suppliers to us, which is Ernie Swinton. As a business, what we want to do is we want to start with kind of where do we want to end up, and that is having the information from our purchase invoices directly imported into Sage with minimal manual admin work. So what we have here is a list of our transactions. We've got our transaction date, history, and value. What I've done here is this has actually been implemented through the document automation. And if we have a look at this particular transaction, we have an example of our purchase invoice. So again, what is document automation? Essentially, we are taking a process that right now is really manual, simply receiving a purchase invoice from our supplier. We then input it into Sage. What we're doing is replacing that with an automation element, and I'll show you how that works in just a moment. And that's going to save you time, save you resource, and also improve accuracy as well, because we all know sometimes, especially if we've been inputting purchase invoices all day, it can be a tiring process, and we can also make mistakes. So how does it work? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here on the left hand side. And as you can see, I think one of the key things about Sicon using or developing applications just for Sage 200 is that it's very difficult to work out kind of where Sage ends and Sicon starts. And that's kind of key to integration. So I'm going to go to Sicon Documents, and I'll go to Document Automation and Process Invoices. So the first step here is what we use is a method of actually inputting the invoices into the system. So what will happen is your supplier will send you an invoice via email. So if we have that PDF, Then what we do is we say, send that PDF to, we can set up a custom URL for you. So for example, ours is like syconai.co.uk. What then that does is that's then attached to the system so it can then start to read the particular invoices. So once that's been submitted, what happens is you'll have an area that you can come into to validate and verify those invoices. So we've taken several of our purchase invoices, we've sent it to our automation email address. That then reads the invoices and actually processes the information. Now, what we want to do is we want to give you the ability to sense check some of that information. So we've got several areas just here. So one area is ready, which is all of the information within that invoice makes perfect sense. We can read all the information and it's ready to go into Sage. We've got the needing attention area, which is we can kind of understand, what the invoice is, but there's some things that we need you to just validate. And we also have a queried section as well. So it gives you the ability to sense check everything and ensure that the quality is, we're putting good quality invoices before it goes directly into Sage. So what you're not doing is inputting something with known errors, and then you get to the end of the month, and you're going to have to kind of then backtrack. We want to make sure that we're being proactive with that. So what we have here, and the way that this works, is we've got a purchase invoice from Ernie Swinton. It's saying we've got our media just here, which is our invoice that we've received. We have our validation and the data. So the way that this works is it's essentially machine learning. So it is quite an advanced application, but what we want to do is we want to make sure that it is as accurate as possible. So what we do is we give you the ability to train the system for particular invoices. So the setup's going to be really, really important. And that's something that EBS and the team will be able to help you with. But essentially what we're doing is we're saying, okay, well, we have our invoice just here. We have our red elements, which is where it's a little bit unsure about the information. So we're going to train this. And the way that this works is we are going to use a sniper's eye to select our invoice number. As you can see here, there's been a slight issue with picking this up. So what we're going to do is we're going to manually just verify that and click save. Now, I would recommend that training is kind of built into the implementation period. And it's going to be really, really important. So as you receive a new, as you import new invoices, different suppliers are going to be use different formats. So what we want to do is we want the system to understand where these particular fields are, what they relate to, and then that'll actually automatically map it to Sage itself. And the more we do this and the more that we correct it, the better the quality and the better the accuracy of the automation is going to be. Brilliant. So we now have that. What we then want to do is just double check that we have everything in place. We have a 5 that need attention. We're going to say that we're going to now validate this particular invoice and say that it's correct. And we want to process it. So we're saying that, yes, it's picked up a few errors, but I've now corrected that. Everything seems valid. It's giving us a slight warning just here saying that no order has been specified. So we can use this if you're also using the purchase invoices as well. I'm going to go to OK. And brilliant. What we've now done is it now takes us to an area to just confirm the information, and we're going to save. So we've got our goods value, we've got our reference numbers, we've got all the information. Yep, that looks correct. And I'm going to save that. And now that's actually been removed from needing attention, and now that actually sits within Sage. So the ideal process is that we don't have to be, revalidating any of the invoices, but especially during the setup process, it's going to be really important to do that. What happens is once you've been using it for some time and the system learns kind of what the format of your purchase invoices look like, it'll automatically go into the ready section, and we can simply just press process. And once you've processed, that will then take it into your purchase ledger and it will be allocated to that particular supplier. So just to show you again kind of how that look, we go into our purchase ledger, we go into our suppliers, we're going to have a look at Ernie Swinton. So again, we now have our purchase invoice that's been correctly inputted into our purchase ledger itself, and we can then view the document which has actually been attached. So what this does is it essentially gives you the ability to, once everything's fully trained, as opposed to manually inputting all of the data, we use the automation element to recognize the information, take it from the PDF, automatically put it into Sage ourselves. We just validate it, and it's sitting there within our purchase ledger. And what we tend to find is I think, especially working with lots of our clients, that saves a considerable amount of time. As you can imagine, lots of our clients are processing anything from 100 to 500 purchase invoices per month. So you think if you can automate even 50% of that process, you're saving a significant amount of time and resource. So the next thing to kind of really focus on is that now that we are inputting the documents themselves and we actually have the purchase invoice attached, it also gives us the ability to go into our document search. And what we're finding is that this is especially topical at the moment. So lots of people obviously working from home, people are trying to avoid the use of paper. So by digitizing that process, we can then make sure that we actually have a digital repository. So as opposed to simply scanning or manually inputting those invoices and then perhaps throwing that paper away, we now actually have a digital copy. So we can now use our document search as effectively a digital filing cabinet. Now, the key benefit of that is that because we're using the document automation and it's attaching that document to the information, inputting it automatically, we can simply use this as almost like a filing cabinet. So we can search for previous documents, we can search for whether it's invoices, it could be any particular attachment associated with that account. And it allow you to go back within time to work out, okay, are there any transactions associated with this document that perhaps haven't been paid, or are there any transactions without documents? It's going to allow you to be a lot quicker and a lot more efficient as a team. One thing that we are also finding as well is lots of people are submitting their purchase invoices and then saving it to something like Dropbox. Now, that does give you the same kind of benefits. You do have a digital record of the invoice, but we're finding it's quite difficult to actually categorize those particular invoices. So, for example, if we're looking at our customer, which is Ernie Swinton, you then have to find the Ernie Swinton supply within Dropbox. You then have to find exactly the right invoice. But what we can do is we can simply go into our supplier and we can find all of the documents that are actually attached with that. If we wanted to, if there are any particular documents or invoices that we wanted to add manually, we can also drag and drop that to the Add Docs button just here. So that's a real kind of whistle-stop tour. So the key bits are kind of what is document automation? Essentially what we're doing is we're automating the purchase invoice inputting process by automatically recognizing the data on a purchase invoice and importing it into Sage. How does it work? It simply just reads a PDF document. It makes sure that the values are correct and it's matching with the right supplier. If it can't quite find the correct information or it has any queries, we allow you to manually verify that. If it doesn't, we go to ready and we manually validate it. The key benefits, it really is about time saving. So especially if you're finding at the moment that you are spending a lot of time manually inputting or querying invoices, purchase invoices, we definitely recommend kind of invoicing some of that process. I think probably, finally, one of the most important parts, getting set up and getting going is to perhaps start off small, making sure that the process kind of works for you, and then we train the system. Because what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's the information that we're inputting is correct and also accurate. And that's probably the most important part. So the customers that we tend to work with are, we'll start perhaps with one supplier, we'll automate that process. make sure that that works for them, because every business is different. And once it does, we then kind of build that out. And what we're seeing at the moment is, with some of our most successful customers, that 80% or 80 to 90% of their purchase invoice implementation or inputting is actually now automated. Brilliant. So any questions at all?
Yes. If you use the invoice matching through the POP module, is it capable of performing with that?
Sorry, how do you mean?
So when we put a purchase invoice on, we don't, and if it's what I call something that for ordered goods, we actually process it through the matching in the POP rather than straight on the purchase ledger.
Yep. So you're using purchase orders.
That's right. Yes.
Yep, sure. So yeah, I think because of the time, I didn't go through that process, but absolutely. So when you go to validate that invoice, I went to the automatic validation. If we go to manual, what we can do is we can set it up to make sure that we read the purchase order, because not every company uses the purchase orders, and we can associate it with that particular purchase order to match. So you've got the two-way matching there.
So that'll take in account of what goods have been received and the price comparison as well.
It will do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it will look at obviously the line level. So if you've ordered 5 and you've only received 3, but you've received an invoice for 5, it will flag that as an issue potentially. Likewise, if there's any discrepancies on there in terms of what that looks like, then it will flag that for a manual override to check and investigate.
Okay, excellent.
So, I mean, it's been a very, very quick kind of high level overview, but as kind of Richard mentioned, we're more than happy, if you do think that this may be of interest, we're happy to perhaps schedule a call with you at some point over the coming weeks to understand what you're trying to achieve in terms of automating some of that manual process. And then we can set up a customized demonstration. So based on the invoices that you receive and your internal kind of purchasing process, we can show you how this would work for you.
Absolutely, and I think everybody's got their own sort of way of working and their own scenario that works for them and their business. So this, as you said, it's just a flavour of the product to give you a bit of an idea of what it can do and the time-saving benefits that it can give. So yeah, myself and Darren would be more than happy to obviously speak to you directly, and we can provide a more detailed demo and show you how that might work and how you may overcome some of those discrepancies that are in there, and work around those. But I mean, obviously, thank you very much, Ben, for doing the webinar. Obviously, if there are any more questions, your last chance is now to ask those. But otherwise, I think, have you got anything else to show, Ben, or are we all done and we'll let everyone get back to doing some work?
Yep, no, there's nothing else to show. I mean, there's lots of stuff that we could probably go into, but
Yeah.
I think today it was just a case of giving you a flavour for how it works and some of the key benefits. Um, and again, yeah, more than happy to answer any questions or schedule follow-up calls to understand if this could be a good fit for you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thanks everybody for attending.
Brilliant. Thanks all. Have a good day.